What is going on, YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. As you can see outside, it is a rainy-ish, crappy, cloudy day out, so it's a great day for this guy to work on a car. So in this video, we are going to be jumping on a small list of tasks to try to get this car being rebuilt and finally get it off this engine hoist. So if you guys do remember, we did get a new upper motor mount on the passenger side that we replaced. It's OEM, rubber bushing, brand new. I do have these nuts coming in the mail, so I do have to replace those. But over here is where we do have our trans mount motor mount. So it actually is more of a transmission mount than anything, and then there's a rear one in the back. This guy, we do have a new bushing for. It did finally show up. So the plan is to just take the old crappy bushing out of the housing and then replace it with the new one, which is a polyurethane bushing from Torque Solutions. So why don't we go ahead and jump on that. So I know I was on the fence without even trying to replace this bushing, but I'm glad that I did go ahead and buy that polyurethane one, because if you look here, not sure if people can see the camera, this thing is actually ripped off from the outer perimeter of it, I guess you would say. So it's definitely not holding the transmission in place and absorbing vibrations as it should. These guys right here are the new stiffer polyurethane bushings. They are still like a little bit, not soft, but like they're not quite as hard as I thought they were going to be. So hopefully it won't add too much vibration and harshness to the motor. But let's go ahead, throw it on a time lapse to try to get this guy removed. So obviously you can see from the time lapse, this isn't going so great getting this bushing out. Basically what I've been doing is I've been using a combination of screwdrivers and large picks to try to kind of chisel around like the perimeter of the bushing, trying to get it to kind of release. There's tons of rust in there, so it's not really coming out, but I do have a plan that I think is gonna work. So what I did was I went ahead and used the fact that it is already broken to my advantage, and I started right here, kind of trying to push this guy through, sort of maybe breaking it the rest of the way. And then this guy is where I went around with the pick and tried to just kind of release it from the perimeter of the bushing itself. So my plan is, I have this guy right here, which is used for Subaru motors, and it is used to use a bolt to socket in or bolt in the cam seals. So it is big and wide, so I think I am gonna throw it on here. I'll probably tape this up so I don't damage it even more, and then try to give it a little bit of light hammering. So it is kind of working. I think I might actually try to save that guy and switch to trying to use like a chisel, something that won't really break as easily. So it does look like it's starting to move through, which is good. Yeah, you can see it's starting to come out right there. So I'm just gonna keep on going with this, trying to use a little bit more force and see if we can get it out. Kind of stinks, I didn't think to do this before I painted it. But it does look like it's working. And I'm just about through, I believe. Switch to the other side. Honestly, might be able to just reverse this. Yeah, you can just hear how crunchy it is. And we're out. Okay, so now obviously in a perfect world, I would have the right tool, which is like a bushing press, and I would be able to get that out super easy, but unfortunately, I'm a guy in a garage and I don't have everything, so I kind of have to make do with what I have. So in the end of the day, it still did work. Let's go ahead and take a look at this bushing, because it's not looking good. So this is my guy. You can see it has obviously had better days. It's very old, very crusty, don't know how much vibration it would really be absorbing. It does turn out, I don't think it actually was completely broken, but I mean, you can see it's sort of wearing real thin. So it's a good thing we replaced it. It's probably not doing its job anymore, since this thing is kind of likely a stock component from when the car was made. But you can go ahead and take a look inside the mount. There is a good bit of rust. So I'm gonna go through, run through that with a wire wheel, and then I will have to repaint this before we can put the new bushing in. Okay, as you can see, it did just take a little bit of wire wheeling, wasn't too bad. There was obviously some rust in there, but we did get it out. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do now is I'm gonna go ahead and jump on trying to just test fit this bushing real quick just to see if it fits. So I did go ahead and tape this guy up because I am gonna paint the inside with the rust reformer just to give it a little bit more protection. But let's set the camera up and see if we can actually insert this Torch Solutions bushing. So it is a little weird. These don't seem like they line up super well. I think they are supposed to be offset, so it's flat on one side on the top and then flat on the other side on the bottom possibly. But these should be able to go in, but I feel like it's gonna give me trouble since it's so thick. So it does seem like this is supposed to maybe replace the inner ring as well. If you can see, there's two lips, one here, and then there's an inner. I think the inner one maybe is supposed to come out as well. Okay, so it's obviously not looking good. It's really kind of stuck in there. It is pressed in. So I've consulted with a friend and we're gonna do, or I'm gonna do exactly what we do with all of our car parts that don't wanna come out. And that is give it some heat. So I'm gonna throw it on a time lapse, start blowtorching the crap out of this thing, and then hopefully I'll be able to, I don't know, hammer it out, push it out, but we'll see. Okay, so this is obviously not easy. This thing is really pressed in here. It's rusted, it's been in there forever, but I am making a little bit of progress. Obviously in this time lapse, you saw I had to take the tape off. It did catch on fire, but luckily fire is not really an issue for me because I'm used to fire. But I am making some progress on this thing. Let me show you what I'm doing. So I've been doing just a combination of heat and hammering. I've already broke the tip off of one flathead screwdriver, but you can see here I did start making some leeway where I was able to get a little bit of a gap, and I started smashing it with a hammer and a chisel. This is definitely not something that you can do quickly without YouTube editing magic, but I am gonna throw it again on a time lapse. I am starting to make some progress. Like, this seems like it has been pushed back a little more, so I'm thinking just a little bit more hammering with the chisel and hopefully it'll come out the other side. But throw it on a time lapse and keep going on it. So I've been hammering away at this thing. I've been giving it like tons and tons of hammering. I am making some progress. I probably won't throw it on another time lapse because it's kind of boring for you guys to just sit there watching time lapses of the same thing. But I did want to go ahead and just at least show where I'm at in the process of removing this, I guess, retaining ring for the old bushing. But take a look. So like I said, you might have been able to see in the time lapse, I kind of have been like leaning on the mount because I don't have like a vice grip for my bench because I'm stupid. So I have been trying to like lean my body weight on it to keep it in place. But you can see what I did was I did get a chisel in there and a hammer, and I started chiseling away, trying to bend it up. And then I went on the other side and I've been doing the same thing. So my idea is to try to get the chisel to go all the way through so the whole bottom is released, and then maybe I can bend it and then try to bend the rest of it out instead of trying to chisel it. But I'm gonna go ahead off camera, try to get this thing off, and then I guess once maybe if I get close, I'll turn the camera back on just to be able to show you guys. There it is. Okay, I won. I had to take my hoodie off. I was getting hot. My forearms are killing me, but I did get it, finally. Here's what I did. So you can see it is a little bit eaten up in there. I'm gonna go ahead and sand it down. I don't think it should really affect like the integrity of the mount, But this little guy, it was in there. And you can see like it's not even super rusted. I think it was welded, possibly on the bottom there. But like, man, my idea was just to try to go all the way through and be able to bend it out. But luckily halfway through with this hammering, I did realize it was starting to, the lip had gotten a little bit bigger. So I realized it was starting to come out. But man, did that take forever. So let's go ahead, we'll throw the new bushing in here and we'll see how it fits. Okay, so haven't installed these obviously before. But hopefully they do fit now, which they do. Oh, it fits so well too. There's like no room left, so I guess at least we know. You know what I didn't think about though? The fact that I do need this hole to be able to line up with the bolt over there. So maybe I'll go ahead, throw it over in the car and kind of see if it lines up. Okay, so I went over the car, kind of checked it out, tried to line it up like how I could. Went online, I did find this picture, and it kind of helps to show how to orient like the flat spots. I guess it's one on this side, one on that side, opposite sides, and they line up obviously because this guy goes through. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to get in the car. Okay, so this is not easy. Trying to get it in here, it's kind of a pain. It's really tight. The transmission is as low as it can go. Obviously there's no mount, so it can't really go any lower unless I take this guy out, which I really don't want to. I did get it out obviously, so I can probably get it back in. It's just not going to be pretty. So I guess I'll probably throw it on a time lapse and just try to get this guy snugged back into there. Luckily the studs, like I said before, did come out when I broke the nuts loose, so it is easier to clear. If you had those studs in, I don't know how you could ever possibly get that mount out. So I guess I'm lucky in that respect. Okay, so there is a very obvious problem that we're having with trying to put this mount in. As you can see, the mount is that wide, right? The stock bushing used to line up flush with these two sides. And then when you went to go put it in, this guy would sit in between and kind of take up the extra space. With the Torque Solutions one, this guy right here gets replaced. This right here takes up all the space that would have been accounted for with this guy and the OEM bushing. So the problem we're running into is when I was able to take it out, I was able to take those two like rubber shims out and then take the whole mount out of the bracket that you mount it into. But now because there's less room, because those shims are now eliminated from the process, I guess, or the combination, we can't really fit the mount in anymore. So what I have elected to do is I am going to go ahead and I'm going to take these two white spots and I'm going to kind of bend them back a little bit just so I'm able to clear it, get that in there, take this bolt out just to give me the room. Because I do remember when I did this mount over here, when I did put the bolt in and the nut on either side and I like torqued it down to the torque spec, these two pieces, they kind of did like bend in a little bit, so it is malleable. I obviously don't want to like be hitting it with a hammer, but I am going to go ahead and try to bend it somehow. So I'm going to throw it on a time lapse and see if I can bend it, I guess, without breaking it. Okay, so in order to insert these, I am going to hit them with a little bit of WD-40 just to kind of lube it up a little bit and make it a little easier to slide in. Doesn't need a lot. I just did a little squirt and then I rub it around the edge. Just helps to slide it in a little easier. So this flat side, this is like towards the front of the motor. This flat side is going to go towards the frame of the car. So again, I'm not really 100% sure how exactly it's going to have to line up for this bolt to line up with the mount on the car. But that's kind of why I did the WD-40, just in case possibly if we have to like move it around a little bit, maybe it'll actually be able to rotate in there. Go ahead, slide this other guy in, flat spot in the opposite direction. So it's gonna go like kind of towards that way, towards the motor. what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this guy, stick this through this side. That way I can try to line it up, which it looks like it is almost lined up. So hopefully I'll have this in the right spot and orientation, right about there. All right, let's try and get it in the car. So as you can see, I did just take a pair of channel locks, taped up the mouth of it, and just kind of bent this back a little bit. Obviously, I really don't like to do this. I would rather not have to do that, but it does seem like unless you drop the motor out the bottom by removing this brace, it's kind of impossible to be able to get the mount in there with that new Torque Solutions bushing in there. So I'm gonna go ahead, I guess throw it on a time lapse, and hopefully it won't take me forever trying to squeeze that guy in. But honestly, once that's actually in and I put the bolt and the nut on the other side and tighten it down, this all is gonna go back to shape anyway. So my only real thing was just making sure I wasn't so rough that I somehow maybe broke the welds or something, but everything seems intact. So let's try and get it done. Okay, so admittedly, this is not my finest moment. I did go ahead and bend these guys. I was able to kind of snug this guy in. I did start getting the bolt going through, tried to bend these guys back a little bit. It does seem like there is a little bit of trouble with these holes lining up for the studs. And so I don't know how long it's gonna take me to get this all finished up, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw it on a time lapse, just so you can at least see what's going on. But I'm gonna give it my best, see what I can do. Okay, so I am gonna go ahead and just say again, not my finest moment. If I had to do it again, I think I probably would just try to remove that lower brace, maybe drop the transmission a little bit rather than bending everything. It did go back fine, everything's lined up. I did go ahead, hoist the engine back up just a little bit, and that made these stud holes line up, which is great. I did go ahead, you can see at the end of the time lapse, and I just had to use two like manual ratchets in order to like, one, get the bolt and the nut tight, and then also kind of bend it back. And then I just kind of honestly had to hammer it a little bit to try to reshape it to be the way that it should be. But it is sitting snug now. But again, maybe just lower that brace and then drop the transmission a little. Again, it works fine, everything's okay, but I did scratch up a good amount of paint. But at the end of the day, it's an Evo, so whatever. So what I am gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead, insert these studs on all sides, bolt them down with the nuts, and then go ahead, retighten this guy a little bit, maybe try to reshape this just a little bit more, and then call it a day on this project. Okay, got that taken care of. I don't know if anyone caught it in the time lapse. What I did was, I did, like I said, raise the transmission by using the engine hoist. That lines the holes up where they need to be. So I went ahead and installed the studs just so everything could be seated properly. And then I went back and one by one, I took a stud out, put some Loctite on it, put it back in, threaded it hand tight. Did that to all of them. And then I went through with either a pair of channel locks or a pair of side cutters. Just went from above and then turned it down until it bottomed out. I didn't want to go too far because it's an aluminum transmission, so I didn't want to like ruin anything or go through the transmission. So when I was using either the pliers or the channel locks, I just kind of went until it started to snug, went just a tiny bit more, and then called it a day. I know from factory there is Loctite on those, so it should keep it pretty okay. But what I have now is, I have all the new nuts on here. So I'm gonna zip these down, and then they do get torqued down to 35 foot-pounds. The torque spec I saw said 35 foot-pounds plus or minus 5 pounds. I don't really know what that means, so I'm just probably gonna go for like 37 and call it a day. So let me get these in. All right, now I'll switch over to my torque wrench. Okay, I'm just gonna go through with the torque wrench, make sure everything's torqued down. Probably is. 35. There we go. And I'm going in a crisscross pattern. So I'm gonna go this guy, this guy, this guy, that guy. All right, those are all set. Okay, and with the last step of the project, we're just gonna have to torque down this nut and bolt for the bushing itself. And it, again, it says 61 foot-pounds plus or minus 5. So I'm just going for 63, just to, I don't know, meet in the middle. Not gonna lie, I'm afraid it's gonna slip and I'm gonna smash my fingers. I probably should get gloves. Or at least switch to this side. And 63. So you can see everything's tightened down. Like I said before, I went in a crisscross pattern, going 35 foot-pounds for all those. And then this guy was the 61 foot-pounds plus or minus 5 pounds, so I did 63. It is pretty close to being completely reseated to where it was. Again, I don't know that I would do it again with bending, but I mean, in this instance, it did work out in my favor. Okay, and with that, we're done. I can go ahead, and I can finally remove this guy, get him out of the way, which is, I guess, a good thing, free up a little space in the garage. But honestly, I think at the beginning of the video, I think I'd actually said that I was gonna do like a list of things, not realizing just how in-depth this install was gonna be. So I guess it is gonna be just a Torque Solutions Transmount install video, but I'm sure that'll help a lot of people, and that's what I'm here for. But if you like the content, go ahead, smash that like button, go ahead, comment, subscribe, and I guess until the next one, see you guys later. Peace out, keep wrenching.